Hi everybody, my name's Dave. Thanks for joining me, and today we're going to talk about the HEUI injection and what it means to you and I. So HEUI stands for Hydraulically Activated Electronically Controlled Unit Injector. HEUI. And hydraulically provides the H, electronically provides the E, and the unit injector provides the U and the I for HEUI. Thinking that many people don't know what the HEUI injection system is, I would write this explanation and hopefully help people get their heads around what this is. A very interesting fuel injection system. Why it was brought in and why it isn't used today. This is only meant as a guide and nothing more. Now, I've made this video before, but we've got a fair few new subscribers now, and a lot of people won't know what HEUI stands for and why it's such a problem for many people. So in 1911, the patent number 1517 or 1517 was issued to Frederick Lamplugh, a British engineer and inventor of the diesel injector, for a unit injector resembling those in use today. In 1993, CAT or Caterpillar and the International Truck and Engine Corporation introduced the hydraulically actuated electronic unit injection system, HEUI, where the injectors were no longer camshaft operated and could pressurize fuel independently from the engine RPM. HEUI uses the engine oil pressure to power high pressure fuel injection, where the usual method of injector operation was with the engine camshaft. This meant that the 4JX1 was a pioneer to the common rail engine. Here are some of the HEUI applications. Ford used HEUI on the 7.3 and the 6-litre Power Stroke between May 1993 and 2007. International also used HEUI systems for multiple engines, including the DT466E, the DT570, the T444E, the DT466, the Max Force 5, 7, 9 and 10, and the VT365 engines. Caterpillar incorporated HEUI systems into the 3116, 3126, 3406E, the C7 Assert, the C9 Assert, and amongst others. Daimler Detroit diesel Series 40 engine supplied by International also included the HEUI system. Isuzu fitted a HEUI system to their 3-litre 4JX1 engine fitted to the Trooper and its variants. I have a funny feeling I'm going to have an assistant in 2 seconds. He's right here. Come here, you munchkin. What are you doing? Hey? Go on, get on your way. I'm trying to record a video. He's going to have a wander around in here now. He's 5 kilos now. What we used to be when I first got him, he was 2.02 kilos. 2 kilos, and now he's 5. Yeah, I think he'll get to about 8 kilos before he's finished, and then we'll be done. Anyway, where was I? Right, the HEUI system has now been superseded by many manufacturers with common rail injection solutions. The newer technology is there to meet better fuel economy and new emission standards being introduced. The injectors used in diesels are as follows. Mechanical fuel injectors with the old school system functions without computer control. Firing with the pressure within the system reaches its maximum. So the camshaft would pressure the injector would reach its maximum, it would fire. Hydraulic electronic unit injectors, HEUI, this computer control system consists of a combined pump and injector for each engine cylinder. So it uses an HPOP pump, a high pressure oil pump. It uses high amounts of pressure to fire precise strokes of fuel to the engine. I'll explain it in a minute, but it doesn't just use that. Common rail injectors, this computerized system consists of multiple injectors connected to one fuel line, known as a rail. Each injector fires at a different point, send a consistent stream of fuel to the engine. That uses a common rail fuel system and pipes to each injector. The injector opens electronically, the fuel goes. A hated system. The 4JX1 is ridiculed and hated by diesel enthusiasts the world over, and a lack of understanding of the system. However, what these neglectful people often forget is that HEUI has a host of advantages. 1. Engines fitted with HEUI cannot be run out of oil. Excessive oil consumption will never result in a superheated internals or catastrophic seizure, but rather an engine that simply stops running because it needs the oil there and the oil pressure to run the engine. HEUI components also enjoy a long service life when properly maintained. Big horsepower can be achieved from HEUI engines. No requirement for expensive fuel injection pumps. HEUI uses a high pressure oil pump. No requirements for high pressure fuel pipes to each injector, as the high pressure is generated inside the injector. And each injector is connected to the oil rail under the rocker cover. So there's no pipes running to injectors or anything like that. The importance of maintaining a strict maintenance regimen. Because a HEUI injector requires both oil and diesel to follow intricate internal paths in order to operate, keeping both fluids clean and fresh as possible is vital. Even though the Isuzu manual dictates that the oil changes at 10,000 kilometers, many 4JX1 owners change the oil at 5,000 kilometers. One of the only methods of providing preventative maintenance for the HPOP, as far as I'm aware, is to provide clean oil and new filters, and not let your service intervals slip. Personally, I change my oil every 5,000 and plus filters every 10,000. Use only quality oil and of the correct grade. Now this is very important. The oil in the HEUI injection system works harder than any other engine oil in the world. Not only is it pressurized between 500 psi and 3,600 psi in the high pressure circuit, but it is additionally responsible for lubricating and cooling the rest of the engine. I often use Penrite 5W40, which is extra 10, which is not only a high quality fully synthetic oil, but it can be used in 5W30 applications and Australian owned and made. So I use Gulf Western oil, and that's Australian owned and made too. They do a 5W30 synthetic and a 10W30 synthetic. So I use the 10W30 synthetic. It's also a lot cheaper than Penrite. Always use good quality filters. As with oil, always use good quality filters. We buy ours from an eBay seller here. He's called TLC Automotive Parts. Now this guy approached us. We were buying from Sydney Oil Filters, but this guy approached us and said he could supply us with the filters cheaper. And he does. And he still does. So look him up. I'll put a link in the description below if you need oil filters. Use this guy. He sells good stuff. The Isuzu blurb, courtesy of the Isuzu Trooper manual. To release the compatibility between low exhaust emission and high engine output, the HEUI hydraulically actuated, electronically controlled unit injection system has been introduced. This system is comprised of a hydraulic system, a fuel system, and electronic control system, using high pressure oil pump in place of a conventional fuel injection pump. The oil is pressurized by means of this pump and signals the electronic control module to actuate the fuel injector provided for each cylinder. Inside of the fuel injector, the fuel pressure is increased due to the high pressure of the oil. The ECM detects the driving state of the vehicle and sends signals to the other sensors, which determines the optimum fuel injection amount and timing, thus controlling the fuel injectors. Thus high engine output, good fuel economy and low exhaust emissions are realized. So what does HEUI mean for the 4JX1 owner? Because of the HEUI system, the 4JX1 has a poor reputation, and many trooper Jackaroos have gone to their graves having been misdiagnosed by inexperienced mechanics. In reality, the 4JX1 engine can be reliable and will compete with many modern trucks, although it does lack initial grunt of many modern diesels. The key elements of having a reliable engine and knowing what the components do when one tends to go wrong. I bought my one owner, Jackaroo, for $500 from such a mechanic who had diagnosed the head gasket when only the seals had failed. So you can use this lack of knowledge to your advantage if you know about the engine. A simplified explanation regarding the operation of the 4JX1 is as follows. Oil is drawn from the sump via the HEUI pickup pipe. Oil passes through the high pressure oil pump up to the feed pipe and into the oil rail. The oil pressure sensor works in collaboration with the rail pressure control valve and the ECM to regulate this oil pressure, and it depends on many parameters such as engine temperature and throttle opening, etc. At the correct time, the ECM commands the injectors to inject fuel into the cylinder, and they do this using the solenoid. And high pressure oil in the rail is drained back to the sump after use. Meanwhile, the fuel pump delivers fuel to the injectors, and any excess fuel is returned back to the tank via the return system. Well, that was interesting. Google Home had a mind of its own there. It started playing Bing Crosby on its own. Bit of a strange effort. Anyway, where was I? Common problems and rectification. There are common issues with the HEUI system that do not exist within the diesel injection types that are often misdiagnosed by inexperienced mechanics. For example, oil and diesel and coolant are mixed together in any combination and then misdiagnosed as cylinder head issues, when in fact they are more likely to be injector seals that have failed. That's what I bought my car. It had coolant in the oil, or oil in the coolant, one of the two. We had to clean it out, and it turned out that it rotted a lot of the pipes. It also turned out it run it dry of coolant and scored one of the bores. So we had to buy another car for the engine. Got the engine out of that, sold the car for $500. The HEUI fuel injector is unique, and the construction of injector is comprised of a solenoid section, a hydraulic line, a fuel line. Fuel injection is controlled by the continuity time signal and the continuity start timing signal sent by the ECM to the solenoid. The ECM detects the parameters of the working engine from the input signals such as the speed, accelerator throttle opening, the engine coolant temperature, sending these optimal signals to the solenoid. With the current carried to the solenoid from the ECM, a poppet valve is opened by means of an armature to let high pressure engine oil into the injector. Under the pressure of the oil, the piston and plunger are depressed to compress the fuel. The pressure of the compressed fuel is increased by the mechanism above the high pressure engine oil by the ratio around 7:1. Create increased pressure for full atomization of the fuel in take place. The injection nozzle end needle is then raised under the increased pressure of the fuel and allows the injection of fuel to take place. Current is ceased from being transmitted to the ECM. The poppet valve is closed, which stops the high pressure engine oil and lets the engine oil used to compress the fuel out of the injector through the drain hole. HEUI injectors are located on the top of the engine and fit inside injector sleeves. Because of the location of these sleeves, they have oil, diesel and coolant in close proximity to each other, and that are only kept separate by O-rings. The O-rings have to deal with extreme heat, and therefore conventional rubber O-rings don't last as long as Viton O-rings. Or Viton O-rings are a material which can stand the cooling and the heating and the cooling and the heating much better. Where the injector nozzle inserts into the cylinder, there is a copper washer, which is essential to replace every time that the injector is removed and refitted or replaced. This copper washer is all that is stopping extremely hot compression gases from destroying the seals. It is also essential that the mating surface is clean and that the washer is orientated and torqued correctly. We're going to talk about the torque settings in a second. This does not mean that the cylinder head has no issues or may not have issues. A head often cracks around the glow plug holes, and my head is cracked in 3 places and was leaking coolant. Probably my fault, but nevertheless, sometimes you just have to take a risk and there may be issues that you cannot see. So the injector tightening sequence. Injectors also require specific tightening sequence and will require torque wrenches. Install oil rail and tighten them temporarily. Just tighten them hand tight, basically. Install the injector assembly. Do not forget to install a new O-ring between the injector and the oil rail, and always use a new O-ring. Do not forget to install the copper seal of the correct orientation to the injector nozzle. Now, if you take all 4 injectors out at once, still attached to the oil rail, you can do that. The problem with that is if you put new seals on, some of them can fall off and invert themselves. If they do that, they're not going to seal. Now, the last time I took the injectors out and all 4 at once like that, it happened to me. I greased up the shafts, put the seals on, and 2 of them fell off and inverted themselves. I only found that out when I went back in because it wasn't running right. Install injector fixing bolts. Tighten temporarily. Hand tight. Install injector clamp. Tighten nut temporarily. Hand tight. Tighten injector fixing bolts to the specific torque. 6.5 Newton meters or 5.1 pounds-feet. Tighten injector clamp nut to the specified torque. 30 Newton meters or 22.4 pounds-feet. Loosen and then retighten to the following torque. 25 Newton meters or 17.4 pounds-feet. That's the injector clamp. That's what holds the injectors down against the copper seal. Tighten the oil rail to a specific torque of 20 Newton meters. Install ejector harness assembly. Reconnect the harness connector to the injector. Record an identification marking injector for each cylinder that is indicated on the upper portion of the new injector. So basically, just take a photograph of the top of each injector you've changed, so you can see the text and the writing on there. Fill with about 300 cc's of engine oil from the high pressure oil pipe installation port on the oil rail if you've emptied it. If it's not been emptied, it doesn't matter. If reassembled without filling the rail with oil, the time for the engine starting will be longer. Immediately install high pressure oil pipe and tighten to the specific torque, 80 Newton meters or 57.9 pounds-feet. Good luck, because you'll need a 27mm ended spanner torque wrench for that. Injectors come in several different categories and are identified by the codes on top of the injector solenoid. If you replace an injector, you will need to reprogram the ECM so that it knows the category of injector is fitted to the cylinder. You will require to use the Tech2 tool to program the codes into the ECM. In the case of an injector change, the injector grade category number must be programmed by the Tech2 as follows. Connect the Tech2 to the vehicle DLC. Now, the DLC is the OBD2 connector, which is underneath the center console on the driver's side. On the right hand side behind the console, you'll feel it in there, you'll feel the cable, you'll be able to pull the plug out. Connect the Tech2 to that. Turn the starter switch to the on position. Select the diagnosis from the main menu of the Tech2. Select the programming from the application menu. Select programming trim data. Select the injector change from programming trim data menu. So if you change the injector, cylinder number 3's injector, select cylinder number 3. Select category number of injector. Confirm the completion of injector programming. Here is a list of common issues that could be considered when diagnosing faults with the starting and running of a 4JX1 engine. Injector harness oil contamination. Now, I'll explain this one a little bit. Because of the injectors are within the rocker cover, there's a lot of oil in that area. Oil gets into the wiring harness of the injector solenoid plugs. Once there, oil runs through the cables using capillary action and eventually finds its way to the harness plug near the oil filler dipstick. This causes spurious signals to the relays and can cause engine to misfire or not run at all if left unchecked. It has been known to reach ECU plugs and contaminate those too. Clean out the plugs with electrical contact cleaner. There is a method to get around this. You can cut the wires and then solder them back together. The soldering joins all the cables together, stops the capillary action. It's up to you. You can do that if you want to. Oil rail pressure sensor, ORPS. This monitors the oil rail pressure sensor and notifies the ECM of what the pressure is. Without the correct expected oil pressure, there is a chance that the engine will not start. The ORPS is located on the oil rail in the rocker cover, and there is a bypass for this sensor called the white wire trick, where you basically cut the white wire to the injector harness, which disables the signal to the ECU. The ECU assumes the worst case scenario and will allow the engine to run in limp home mode. I'm going to put a link below to the video of the white wire trick. The rail pressure control valve, or the RPCV, is fitted to the rear of the high pressure oil pump and controls the amount of oil pressure going through the rail. The valve can cause engine starting problems, and it can also cause the engine just to cut out because it gets dirty and requires cleaning. It will stop operating. The RPCV requires a special socket to remove it due to its length and can be dismantled to clean it. A word of caution: there is some very small parts in the RPCV that are required to be assembled in the correct orientation. Use a tray and don't lose any. Oil sump pickup pipe. There are two oil pickups. One is the shorter one for the oil lubrication system, and the longer one is for the HEUI injection oil feed to the H-pop. The original pickups were prone to vibrations that caused cracking or snapping off and sucking air, which made the 4JX1 hard or impossible to start. Later versions were strengthened by Isuzu, and you can replace them if you can locate some. Alternatively, there was someone on Gumtree, which turned out to be one of the well-known Jackaroo engineers, selling these springs, which consisted of two big springs that fitted between the bottom of the sump and the oil pickup, which held them rigid, stopped them vibrating. Also, the O-rings at the top of the pipes where they connect to the block can fail and suck air, so keep an eye on those too. I've got the springs in my car. I think I've got them on a video where I did change the sump. Here's a link of a video regarding the pickup pipe mod here. I'll put that link in the description below as well. The high pressure oil pipe, item 2, is located on the right side of the engine as you look from the front, passenger side, and is attached between the two-way valve at the base of the oil rail and the top. This pipe needs to be removed when the rocker cover is accessed, and means that the O-rings can be damaged or lost as they fit into the end of the pipes in the groove. The pipe is reassembled without the new O-ring, and the O-ring is lost. The H-pop can empty the sump of its oil onto the floor under your car. It's imperative that when refitting this, you check the O-rings are present, and if you fit new ones, I would suggest you use the factory seals or Viton. Using the correct grade of oil. It is absolutely imperative that you use the recommended oil in the 4JX1 engine, and do not listen to anyone telling you otherwise. None of this old engines need thicker oil business. It will not work. Your engine will run badly, or it will not run at all. The HEUI injection system requires the correct oil and nothing else except the climate dictates different oil as follows. You can use 5W40 if you're in very cold conditions up to 30 degrees C. In Australia, we're over 30 degrees C quite a lot. So I use the oil that runs from minus 15 degrees C to over 40 degrees C, which is 10W30. 5W30 is the other one. The oil rail end cap O-rings. Right, the oil rail is under the rocker cover. Big cast iron thing, you'll see it when you go in there. If you see a low oil pressure reading in the Tech 2 or at the AUX, it could be a failed oil rail end cap O-ring. These are extremely difficult to diagnose because you can normally see an oil leak. This is like looking for water leak while standing in the shower. They are located under the rocker where there is lots of oil anyway. So you could have to run the engine with the rocker cover removed, which is debatable whether you'd notice a leak with a lot of oil flinging around. Therefore, if you suspect a leak, I will consider replacing the gaskets. But it's not as easy a job because the end caps are tight and end cap seals and have a strange shaped drive to them. That's it. So the end caps are tight and they would have a straight shaped drive to them. Watch the video from 23 minutes and 50 seconds to 32 minutes and 42 seconds, where they change the end cap seals and show how to make a tool to remove the caps. There are many other things that can go wrong with the HEUI system, and this document just lists the most common problems. It is in no way a definitive answer to all HEUI's problems, and it should be used as intended as a guide if you see anything wrong or I've missed. If I missed anything, please let me know and I'll amend the document. I hope this helps someone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.